Hello! We are starting a new episode of the show where you learn what is happening in Brazil. My name is Pamela Oliveira. Welcome! And to start things off, here is the latest news from last week.
An oil spill reached more than 100 beaches in Brazil's northeastern coast since early September. The magnitude of the spill already makes it the greatest man-made environmental disaster in the country. The Brazilian authorities are still investigating the source of the spill. However, the far-right government of Jair Bolsonaro has been slammed by several organizations for the slow response to the disaster. Federal courts in Sergipe, one of the most affected states in the Northeast, have ordered that the Brazilian government take actions to contain the oil spill. The order came after a petition filed by the Federal Prosecution Service, which argues that the government is not putting in all necessary efforts to mitigate the damage. The Brazilian government tried to hold Venezuela liable for the spill, but experts showed that the oil could not possibly be coming from the neighboring country because the ocean currents flowing from the Venezuelan coast would take the oil sludge away from Brazil. The City Council of Florianópolis, in the southern state of Santa Catarina, unanimously passed a bill to promote a pesticide-free town. It's the first Brazilian municipality to define areas of the city where the use and storage of pesticides will be banned, whether for agriculture, husbandry, extractivism, or natural resource management. The bill was proposed by Councilman Marcos José de Abreu of the Socialism and Freedom Party. The councilman argues that the proposed legislation was based on research and reports that show how harmful the indiscriminate use of pesticides can be to health and the environment. In 2017, the Risk-Free Food Program implemented by the Santa Catarina State Prosecution Service found pesticide residues in more than half the vegetables tested, and the results for nearly 20% of the produce exceeded the levels allowed by law.
Black women's struggle have a long history in Brazil, but it is in the 1980s that black feminism gained momentum and prominent activists emerged, like Lélia Gonzalez and Sueli Carneiro. In the 2000s, Brazil's black movement started to put forward demands to push affirmative actions policies in university admissions. Bia Ferreira is a 26-year-old singer who launched her first record in September. She stands out as an activist demanding affirmative action policies for black men and women to access higher education. Her voice and her lyrics are really powerful.
Não precisa ser Amélia pra ser de verdade. Você tem a liberdade pra ser quem você quiser.
Art and activism are intrinsically connected. It's based on this idea called artivism that singer Bia Ferreira creates her music. She believes that artists who don't speak up about what's going on are not making art. They are just about bread and games. One of the things Bia Ferreira advocates is affirmative action policies, like the use of quotas in universities.
Fico triste de ainda precisar falar.
It's upsetting to have to talk about quotas today, but I understand that the process of decolonizing black minds is very recent. Slavery was only abolished in Brazil 132 years ago. When you think about that, you realize, man, my great-grandfather was enslaved. We have to talk about that. I cannot stay silent. I wish I didn't have to talk about this, but if I don't, people will not have access to information, and I believe information can change things.
E eu acredito que a informação transforma.
The artist also questions people who are vocal against racism but are not anti-racist in practice.
Sabe, é alguém que
If I'm going to hold a white person's hand to fight with me, they have to bleed with me. Because I know that if I'm holding their hand, it's me who will get shot, not them.
tiro vem em mim, não vai nela.
E nem venha me dizer que isso é vitimismo. Não bota a culpa em mim pra encobrir o seu racismo. E nem venha me dizer que isso é vitimismo, que isso é vitimismo, que isso é vitimismo. São nações escravizadas, são culturas assassinadas. É a voz que ecoa no tambor.
Quanto tempo faz que eles contam nossa história? Quanto tempo faz que constroem nossa memória? Eu vim para contar que tão certo como agora, eu estarei nas linhas que contam nossa vitória. O que está no seu caderno eu vivo no dia a dia. Representatividade. É nós por nós. Ninguém vai falar por mim, eu tenho a minha voz. E se a minha voz em algum momento falhar, posso te garantir, tem muita preta para falar. Então, deixa que eu conto a minha história, eu me represento, eu recebo as glórias, aprendo com as minhas e tão certo como agora, eu estarei nas linhas que contam nossa vitória. Então, deixa que eu conto a minha história, eu me represento, eu recebo as glórias, aprendo com as minhas e tão certo como agora, eu estarei nas linhas que contam nossa vitória.
Investment in public universities and affirmative action in higher education were policies pushed by the Workers' Party governments from 2003 to 2016. But now they are being attacked by the administration of the country's far-right president, Jair Bolsonaro. Recent budget cuts to education have impacted research scholarships, affecting scientific development in the country and also the lives of researchers.
Here at the University of São Paulo, we see that education is eroding. It seems like the Ministry of Education has a plan to pull the plug on scientific research in Brazil's public universities.
Some postgraduate students are managed to continue to work, but some projects have been halted and some people don't even have the money to get to university because their scholarship was cut off.
Brazil's two major research funding agencies called CAPES and CNPq have been struggling with budget cuts in recent months. CAPES had to freeze nearly 8,000 scholarships indefinitely, and the agency's forecast will force it to freeze more scholarships in 2020. The other funding agency, CNPq, funds 80,000 research projects in the country. All of them could be impacted by budget cuts, and it is unclear if researchers will continue to receive payments after October.
These funding agencies are very important to us, especially for us to be able to live here. My research is on metabolism, and I use transgenic animals as an experimental strategy. Our work here is basically finding strategies to prevent metabolic syndrome, especially obesity and diabetes. All that is done at basic research labs like ours.
We give back to society what society pays in taxes to fund our research. We work for the social well-being, not for private industries.
Education cannot be a right-wing or a left-wing agenda. It must be the country's agenda. Society must understand that this is what we are. We are part of it.
Now, let's learn more about our culture with our segment Brazilianism.
Chambari is a cut of beef from the leg, the beef shank, so it's that muscle tissue. You can ask the butcher to cut it for you. To make this dish, you will rinse it and season it with salt, onions, garlic, the basics. I like to add bell pepper and tomato too, but that's not necessary if you don't like it. Put it in the pressure cooker and let that first water dry. You will also add annatto, which is like turmeric. After the first water dry, you will add more water and let it cook slowly. It takes time, it's not a tender cut, because it had a lot of muscle tissue. Chambari is a typical dish, not specifically from Tocantins state, but from the entire North region. It has a strong flavor because it's the beef shank, so there is a lot of muscle tissue, connective tissue, and bone marrow, so it's got a very pungent taste. A lot of people who work as farmers don't have time to go home for lunch, so they usually eat this for breakfast in the morning, with manioc flour or rice. They also usually add pepper sauce.
Wanna keep up with the latest news from Brasil de Fato? Join our broadcast list. Add this number you see on the screen to your contacts and send us a WhatsApp message with your name and country. That's it, everyone. I see you again next week. Bye!